Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, me. And this is going to be something different. A continuation of my new series, The New World Order, Media and Press Releases. And this one is going to be about the Nexus magazines that I have collected since 2005, and that I have read entirely since 2005. They issue about 6 a year, and on the early years I don't have all of them. So this one here is July-August 2005. Big Problems with Nanotechnology. The Amazing Effects of Music on Plants. The Ginglemesh Project. Does immortality await us? The Race for Free Energy. Mayan Calendar Revelations. Unveiling the Bloody History of Buddhism. On the bottom here it has UFOs in Russia and Organic Silica Part 2. So I just thought I'd talk about some of the education I got. Go over some of the articles briefly in these magazines and see if it coincides with everything else I've been going over. Alright, Down on the Farm, Nanotechnology and the Food Chain. Just going to read my highlighted portion and then move on to the next topic. So, over the next 2 decades, the impacts of nanoscale convergence on farmers and food will exceed that of farm mechanisms or the green revolution. So, farm machineries, high-tech, green revolution. They say that the impact of nanoscale technologies will surpass all that in the next 20 years. This is 2005. No government has developed a regulatory regime that addresses the nanoscale or the societal impacts of the invisibly small. Likewise, a number of pesticides formulated at the nanoscale are on the market and have been released in the environment. Nanotech has profound implications for farmers and fisher people, pastoralists milking cheese, and for food solventry worldwide. So little nanobots or nanotechnology, bacterial or mechanized things put into our body and our environment. Agriculture may also be the proving ground for technologies that can be adapted for surveillance, social control, and biowarfare. The GM, genetically modified food debate, not only failed to address environmental and health concerns, it disastrously overlooked the ownership and control issues. How society will be affected and who will benefit are critical concerns. You think? Just going to briefly touch on some of these topics, but I think as a combined video it ought to be interesting. I'm only doing from 2005 to 2010, I think. 2008. We'll see how this goes. An alien detour. Stopped at night on the side of the road, 2 Russian truck drivers were astounded by the sight of a spaceship before them and amazed when one of the drivers was welcomed aboard. So here I am starting my research in 2005, getting Nexus magazines. I thought it was some kind of construction equipment. However, when I drove closer, I saw the big object that was in the headlights had a metallic sheen to it. When we got to within 80 to 90 feet of the object, our motor stalled, and our truck coasted several feet further and stopped. We understood that we were seeing something very unusual in front of us, and were afraid that something unavoidable would happen. After I had passed the hood of the truck, I began to feel, with each step I took, an increased resistance from the air. My body seemed to melt. It became difficult to move. I knew that if I got any closer to the object, I would not be able to move at all. So he was with a friend of his, moving on here. Very quickly he came to the conclusion that the object was not of earthly origin. Truly it was something very unusual. In front of Oleg, there stood a huge disc-shaped object, approximately 120 to 140 feet in diameter, with a dome-shaped top on which no other structures were visible. Along the perimeter of the disc, there were some dark holes, evident, which Oleg at first thought were portals. So a fiery request. Why is this object here, in the middle of the forest at night? What is its purpose? Maybe something has gone wrong and it needs assistance. All these questions flooded Oleg's mind. And at that very moment in front of him, at a distance of an outstretched hand, right in the air appeared a glimmering red dotted line. There's some interesting articles in these magazines. I'm not trying to sell Nexus magazines, but if you do go to their website, you can order them from Australia. They don't allow them to be sold in the USA anymore, apparently because of the mind control articles in these magazines, anti-government belligerent material in these magazines. But for $60, $70, you can order a disc that has all the articles, magazines, since Nexus magazine started. Or for about $50, you can order 2015, the entire 6 magazines. And that's what I do every year. Kind of crazy looking back at these old magazines. February 2005, the coming crash of the US dollar, toxic vaccines cover-up, Cecil Rhodes and secret societies, Australian government UFO files revealed, Tunguski mystery deepens, and suppressed science magnetic monopoles, Tesla's mystery car, and the wands of Horus. So I just went in here and looked up some articles, put some little tabs on there, the ones I wanted to discuss, and pre-read them and highlighted. The truth behind vaccines cover-up. I was asked to write a paper on some of the newer mechanisms of vaccine damage. So they were concerned about vaccine damage to the nervous system. And if you go on YouTube, look up dangerous vaccines, etc., you'll find that recently, I think I went over this in some previous videos, several vaccine investigators, doctors, have been mysteriously dying. I'm trying to warn us about the problems. And in my opinion, there seems to be some kind of attack on humanity, particularly the depopulation agenda. And some people who want a superior new bloodline of humans think the rest of us might be inferior. Need to be done away with. What better way than to get people to line up and take an injection? But in the interim, I came across an incredible document that should blow the lid off the cover-up being engineered by the pharmaceutical companies in conjunction with powerful government agencies. It all started when a friend of mine sent me a copy of a letter from Congressman David Weldon, MD, to the Director of the Centers of Disease Control, CDC, Dr. Julie L. Gorberding, Bearding, in which he alludes to a study by Thomas Verstraeten, then representing the CDC, on the connection between infant exposure to thimerosal containing vaccines and neurodevelopment injuries. Get the words out. So I'm just reading a little bit of these topics, just to kind of give a brief overview of my research on different topics. I read all these articles completely when I originally obtained these magazines. The Wands of Horus, Ancient Tools for Enlightenment. And as I said when I started my research back in 2005, it was a rather simplistic goal I had. I just wanted to get into alternate energies, and I don't mean that in any paranormal or beyond common physics. I wanted to find solutions to get away from gas and oil and nuclear power, and I had worked for 10 years at a major aerospace company near the Space Center. I have a degree in electronic technology, but I didn't trust the system. I knew that there was a cover-up of technologies. I worked at a major aerospace company for 10 years, like I said, so I decided to collect old books, autobiographies of people who were famous scientists. I like to collect old books and read them. And I found out a lot of those people were into the paranormal. They had psychic abilities when they were young, like Nikola Tesla. So it started to open my eyes to a different kind of world. I said, what the heck is going on? I was your standard, normal graduate from school and didn't believe in the hocus pocus. I was a Christian because I grew up Catholic and I was told to believe. And I had blind faith in God and that Jesus and the story was real. Did I go investigate and look at the Bible and check everything out? Not really. But since I've been doing my investigation, I have. And everything starts to line up. So here we are talking about the Wands of Horus. Horus would be the eye on the dollar bill. That's his representation, the eye. And you see it all over Hollywood now in symbolism in movies. And he was the son of Isis and Osiris, the gods of Egypt. So what are the Wands of Horus? Their roots go back to the depths of time. For the priests and pharaohs of ancient Egypt, the Wands of Horus, metal cylinders filled with various types of special materials, were a tool enabling an initiate to pass over the boundary of death. Not in a figurative sense, but in a direct one. All right, moving on. The ancient doctrine of the hidden nature of the human being that revealed the way to the supernatural enlightenment envisioned by the nature of the Creator helped an initiate to discover the great truth. Moving on, I'm only reading my highlighted portions. Just trying to make a little sample of some of the studies I went over during the years. The Wands of Horus are also a means of prevention and treatment, providing the opportunity in certain disorders to correct particular deviations from the norm and noticeably improve a person's state of health, since they inspire a very deep-running physiological and energetic process. It is important to stress that the knowledge of the ancient Egyptians was founded not on mystical, astrological, or esoteric doctrines, but on a strict grasp of the principles on which the universe was founded. In other words, at the basis of the theoretical and spiritual constructs of the ancient Egyptian initiates lay first and foremost knowledge, not faith. The wands of Horus, and indeed the knowledge of the ancients in general, is a very interesting and wide-reaching topic. You think? A couple pictures here. It says here, the electromagnetic energy cocoon of the Earth is a carrier of oscillations associated with the source of life on Earth, which stimulates the development of numerous forms of life as well as the faculty of reason. So an electromagnetic energy cocoon of the Earth. Meanwhile, they built all those HARP systems that can transmit electromagnetic energy in strength, direction, pulsing, various frequencies. And these are the people who are controlling our world, who are into this alternate New Age religion. With Horus, as I said earlier, the eye on the US dollar bill, and the Freemasonic symbolism. A lot of connections here. Here's a couple of these cylinders, modern types, I guess. So anyways, moving on. In these magazines, I got something called the Twilight Zone. During the course of this article, Disclosure of Australia, Debbie Payne, I am going to try to give you a glimpse through a very small window into the Australian government's files on UFOs. What has to be understood is that the information beyond this window is so extensive that it would be impossible for me to present even a fraction of what has been discovered, let alone explain to you. The hardest part in writing this paper was deciding on which files to disclose. So again, I'm being very brief, only reading my highlighted portions. I did find something on the second page here. In Woomera Area 52, the next find I'd like to discuss is based on a couple of files from the Department of Supply at Woomera on sightings that occurred between 1952 and 1954. There were literally hundreds of sightings over the years at this highly restrictive space facility. In fact, the base servicemen even had their own UFO club called STARS, Scientific Technological Astronomical Research Society, STARS, which they were permitted to set up, but with very stringent conditions, including being prohibited from publishing any of their UFO reports. I like the little cartoons on these magazines. This one says, our next big mission for 2008 is to send a fully equipped probe to Washington to search for signs of intelligent life. A little pun on Washington, D.C. Oh, there's another one. Just going through some of these. July, August 2007. The Power of the Placebo. Forged origins of the New Testament. PMCs, a privatized military conspiracy. Health authorities hide vaccine reactions. You're going to notice some common denominators in some of these articles. You could probably figure out why they were banned in the USA selling these magazines. Mystery of the Ice Ages, Bode's Law, and Our Missing Planet. And again, I put some little tabs here. I pre-read some material. The Bush government's shadow army. On September 10th, a day before 9/11, 2001, before most Americans had heard of Al-Qaeda or imagined the possibility of a war on terror, Donald Rumsfeld stepped to the podium at the Pentagon to deliver one of his many addresses as Defense Secretary under President George W. Bush. So this was his first major address. Standing before the former corporate executives he had tapped as his top deputies overseeing the high-stakes business of military contracting, many of them from firms like Enron, General Dynamics, the Aerospace Corporation, Rumsfeld issued a declaration of war the day before 9/11. The topic today is an adversary that poses a threat, a serious threat, to the security of the United States of America, Rumsfeld thundered. You may think I'm describing one of the latest discrepant dictators of the world. The adversary's closer to home. It's the Pentagon bureaucracy. Rumsfeld called for a wholesale shift in the running of the Pentagon, supplanting the old DoD, Department of Defense bureaucracy, with a new model, one based on a private sector. Announcing this major overhaul, Rumsfeld told his audience, I have no desire to attack the Pentagon. I want to liberate it. We need to save it from itself. The next morning, the Pentagon would literally be attacked as a Boeing 757, American Airlines Flight 77, smashed into its western wall. But it didn't take long for Rumsfeld to seize the almost unthinkable opportunity presented by 9/11 to put his personal war, laid out just a day before, on a fast track. The new Pentagon policy would emphasize covert actions, sophisticated weapon systems, and a greater reliance on private contractors. And if you go look up, 147 countries control the world, or 50 countries control the world. I looked that up today. Let me read the titles here. Does one super corporation run the global economy? Study claims it could be terrifyingly unstable. And this was October 2011. Another one I found today, looking at my computer here. The 50 corporations that rule the world. So this is new research I'm doing. These documents were back in 2012, 2011. This is 2001. And they're trying to privatize everything. And 50 corporations rule the world. So who do you suppose is going to be, all this stuff's going to be sold to? These super entities who control the world, who are all interconnected with each other. The New World Order, folks. Just saying, FYI. All this stuff is melting the mystery of the Great Ice Age. So much for global warming and global cooling. Listen to this. Those of us who live in the Midwest United States seem to have the worst of both worlds. Hot, humid summers where the temperature often reaches 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and cold winters where the mercury can plummet to 0. I grew up in Maine, it was like that. Despite the seemingly unbearable extremes, we live in a land of plenty because of the most fertile soil in the world, courtesy of the Great Ice Age. According to scientists, over the course of the last 2 million years, at least 4, possible 6 periods of glaciation plowed out an assortment of rock from Canada, moved it south in about 100-foot-high flow of ice and snow, pulverized it against bedrock, and deposited it on the Midwest plain. So, what do you got? 4 major ice ages? Something's not right with this New World Order. Climate change, global warming, global cooling, too much CO2. There is a nefarious attempt to take over the world by some people who call us goyim, profane, or as H.G. Wells said, animals not to be trusted. Then they got vaccines in these magazines and so much more as I continue on with this video. The forged origins of the New Testament. I like to pay attention to who the authors are. This is in the 4th century. The Roman Emperor Constantine united all religious factions under one composite deity and ordered the compilation of new and old writings into a uniform collection that became the New Testament. Tony Bushby, March 2007. What the church doesn't want you to know. It has often been emphasized that Christianity is unlike any other religion, for it stands or falls by certain events which are alleged to have occurred during a short period some 20 centuries ago, 2,000 years ago. And as I said in previous videos, look at your calendar. It says 2016. That's 2016 since Jesus was born. So Christianity is very much alive in the world. Just look at the calendar. And I do agree that the church has abused the religion for its own selfish purposes. What else is new with religion? But I still believe that Jesus was real. I believe the Gospel of St. Mark and St. Matthew and the books in the New Testament. But you have to see how the church has used that for its own selfish gains, as I said. Some very insane activities. The 8 Crusades from 1000 to 1300 AD. 300 years, 8 Crusades. 8 times they went to the Middle East and slaughtered all those Arabs. They didn't leave anybody alive. And they split their guts open just to see if maybe they were hiding a coin. That's what they used to do. Swallow the coin so you couldn't get it. These stories are presented in the New Testament, and as new evidence is revealed, it will become clear that they do not represent historical realities. The church agrees, saying, our documentary sources of knowledge about the origins of Christianity and its earliest development are chiefly the New Testament scriptures, the authenticity of which we must, to a great extent, take for granted. The church makes extraordinary admissions about the New Testament. For example, when discussing the origins of these writings, the most distinguished body of academic opinion ever assembled, Catholic Encyclopedia's preface, admits that the Gospels do not go back to the 1st century of the Christian era. So they were, of course, they were written after Jesus had been crucified. The statement conflicts with the priesthood assertions that the earliest Gospels were progressively written during the decades following the death of the Gospel of Jesus Christ. So if you read the Gospels, and you read what St. Mark said, and St. Matthew said, etc., you'll find a lot of common denominators about what they described Jesus did and Jesus said. And I think that's the important factor. But did the popes later on abuse the religion for their own selfish gains? Absolutely. Look what they did to South America, North America. The conquistadors, they're carrying the Christian banner, slaughtering the natives in Mexico and South America and the islands. This statement conflicts with the priesthood assertions that their Gospels were progressively written during following the death of Jesus Christ. In a remarkable aside, the Church further admits that the earliest of the extant manuscript of the New Testament, it is true, do not date back beyond the middle of the 4th century A.D. Just another magazine, some articles in history, stuff I researched and read. Okay, another one here. June 2007, May, June. Neurochemistry of sex. Covert weapons for social control. Health secrets of the pomegranate. Amazing Technologies of Dr. Harry Oilfield, The Conscience Ether, ETs in the Vatican, Papal Crimes, Bioelectrography, Littlefoot. On the back, they always have these nice advertisements. So what did I highlight in this magazine? Electromagnetic weapons and human rights. If you've been watching my videos, a lot of this is familiar. Got whole books on these subjects. Some of the articles of these essays, these articles, the authors are the same people, of course, who wrote books. The U.S. military intelligence, industrial intelligence complex has an arsenal, gotta get my reading right, of electromagnetic weapons to use on today's battlefields and also against citizens as a means of social control and in conventional of human contrivance of human rights. Things I've been saying. A study of the history of U.S. intelligence community, human rights violations, and continuing research in electromagnetic weapons. This research explores the current capabilities of the U.S. military to use electromagnetic EM devices to harass, intimidate, and kill individuals, and the continuing possibilities of violations of human rights by the testing and deployment of these weapons. In the 1950s and 1960s, the CIA began work to find means of influencing human cognition, emotion, and behavior. Stuff I've been saying. Through the use of parapsychological understanding of human beings as a social animal, and the ability to manipulate a subject's environment through isolation, drugs, and hypnosis. U.S.-funded scientists have long searched for a better means of controlling human behavior. Who the hell do these people think they are? New technological capabilities have been developed in black budget projects over the last few decades. These include the ability to influence human emotions, disrupt thought, and present excruciating pain through the manipulation of magnetic fields. And I know they can do a lot more. Another article. Harry Oilfield's Amazing Imaging Technologies. I've gone over this. It's about the being able to see the aura around the human body. In 2006, International Society for the Study of Subtle Energies and Energy Medicine, ISSEEM, awarded Dr. Harry Oilfield the Alice and Elmer Green Award for Innovation for his work, noting that it allows us to experience our multidimensional existence through his extraordinary images. Harry Oilfield, British biologist turned energy field researcher, developed his imaging system, polycontrast interference photography, PIP, in the 1980s. He perfected this application after many years of research into Carlin photography, which captures changing patterns of light energy emanating from all living things, including humans, animals, and plants, even from crystals. His original research with Carlin photography focused on the phantom leaf effect. A leaf from a tree or bush is set up for Carlin photography, but a portion of that leaf is removed. In more than 50% of the cases, the energy outline showed the whole leaf, including the portion removed. So that would be like taking a photograph of my hand and somebody cut off a finger, and if you took a photograph it with this equipment, you would see the whole hand. The finger that was cut off would still be, the image would still be there. The energy field would still be there. I've gone over that in past material. And I'll probably be re-looking at those things again. Photography of ghosts. People taking a picture of another back in the 1940s and 1920s, 1880s. They were experiencing heavily into this paranormal activity stuff. The criminal history of the papacy. All right, who wrote this? Tony Bushby again. The history of greed, bloodlust, and depravity of many of the popes and the Roman Church hierarchy have been falsified by modern church historians to present images of piety and humility. Couldn't agree with that more. I've done too much research. The papacy continues in its way into degeneracy with no parallel in the history of the world religion, and that brings us to another militaristic and disbelieving pope. He was Galliano della Rovere, 1443 to 1513. He called himself Julius II, 1503 to 1513. He fought and intrigued like a worldly prince and was famous for his long and bloody wars. He acted like a soldier in the Cossack. He drank and swore heavily as he led his troops. He was willful, coarse, bad-tempered, and difficult to manage. He would ride his horse up the Laterne stairs to his papal bedroom and tether it to the door. So he would ride his horse right into the the Pope's cathedral, and tie his horse to the door. He is acknowledged to have had 3 to 5 children while he was a cardinal, and was confidentially accused of leading nobles of Rome of unnatural vices. So he was into some strange things, probably homosexuality. If I may say that's a strange thing for a pope to be doing. I don't hate gay people. I just don't like the United Nations trying to alter our social reality. Spending billions of dollars and teaching children about BJs and other things. Handing out condoms to kids in grade school. Give me a break. We all have minds. We all have souls. We are bioelectrical beings. We have, as this Carlin photography already shows. All right, moving on with my little snapshot of these magazines over the past 10 plus years. September, October 2007. Economic Hitman and the Corporocracy. Cell phones, hormone disruption, and cancer. Bilderbergers towards a one-world company. Is cancer a fungus? Multiple timelines and the humans from our future. Fuel-free energy system, UFO secrecy, and archaeological trench warfare. Remember, this series is the New World Order media and press releases, so this is media. Okay, Economic Hitman and the Global Corporocracy. Sorry if I say that word. Just reading my highlighted portion. John Perkins, I've just mentioned his name many times in my videos. I've got his book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Worked from 1971 to 1981 for the international consulting firm of Chas T. Main, where he was a self-confessed economic hitman. Amy Goodman interviewed him on the 5th of June for the radio TV news program Democracy Now! Amy Goodman. Hundreds of thousands of protesters are gathering in Germany ahead of tomorrow's G8 meeting of the world's richest nations. German police have spent $18 million to erect a 12-kilometer-long, 2-meter-high fence around the meeting site. Global warming will be high on the agenda. Maybe they should worry about another glacier coming. Going into the meeting, President Bush has proposed to sideline the UN-backed Kyoto Accords and set voluntary targets on reducing emissions of greenhouse gases. Other top issues will include foreign aid and new trade deals. Today we spend the hour with a man who claims to have worked deep inside the forces of driving corporate globalism. In his first book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, John Perkins told the story of his work as a highly paid consultant, hired to strong-arm leaders into creating policy favorable to the U.S. government and corporations, which he calls the corporatocracy. John Perkins says he helped the U.S. cheat poor countries around the globe out of trillions of dollars by lending them more money than they could possibly repay and then taking over their economies. John Perkins has just come out with his second book on the issue. It's called The Secret History of the American Empire. Economic Hitman, Jackals, and the Truth About Global Corruption. So you can see me back in 2007 reading this stuff, developing my opinion on things. And we know who controls the United States. It's not me. It's not people who are probably watching this video. It's the Zionist Jewish bankster folks. It's the leaders of the Skull and Bones, the other Freemasonic temples and lodges and other mystery of school Babylon witchcraft organizations. Everything from the growing church of, fastest growing church right now, the Church of Satan, Rosicrucians, Kabbalah people, Hollywood, all that insanity programming on TV now. Bilderbergers, Bohemian Grove, Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, the now Jesuit Pope. We just read about popes in these magazines. Not all popes are good. And Jesuit popes are basically, the Jesuits are the military arm of the church. The enforcers. Why would they put an enforcer in charge now? Good question. Bilderberger 2007. Towards a one world empire. This stuff keeps repeating itself. The sun has set on Bilderberger 2007 in Istanbul, Turkey. And right now Turkey is getting ready to go to war with Saudi Arabia against Russia, so it seems. Crazy world. After a sumptuous lunch on the warm and sunny 3rd of June, most Bilderbergers returned to their countries of choice, fresh armed with precise instructions from the steering committee on how to proceed in covertly expanding the powers of a one-world government, and how to proceed in covertly, I just said that. Amongst this year's luminaries in attendance were Henry Kissinger, Henry Kravis of KKR, Marie Joseph Carvis of the Hudson Institute, Vernon Jordan, Etienne Davigon, Bilderberger Group President, Her Majesty Queen Beatrice of the Netherlands, daughter of one of the founders, Prince Bernhard, and King and Queen of Spain. I keep saying all these people are in cahoots to take over the world. They don't want people to own ranches and farmland and enterprises and businesses. They're bent on destroying all of us. As a rhetorical question, can someone please explain to me how it is that progressive liberals such as John Edwards and Hillary Clinton, as well as do-gooder humanitarians with multiple social projects on the go, such as David Rockefeller and every royal house of Europe, can perennially attend Bilderberg meetings knowing that the final objective of the despicable group of hoodlums is a fascist one-world empire? That's a mouthful. The idea is to give to each country a political construction and an appropriate national economic structure organized for the following purposes: Remember this when we discuss sustainability, biodiversity, Agenda 21, Jade Helm, the government buying 450 million hollow point bullets, FEMA camps, crashing the dollar, stock market, plagues, terrorism, and so much more. These are tools to bring about the New World Order. And this cashless society thing that's coming soon is meant to be able to turn anybody off they want. They can shut down your electronic ID. We got problems, as you can see in these magazines. So the purpose is to place political power in the hands of chosen people and eliminate all intermediaries, to establish a maximum concentration of industries and suppress all unwarranted competition. There you go. To establish absolute control of prices of all goods and raw material. They'll charge you anything they want for a gallon of milk. Bilderbergers make it possible through their iron grip control of the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Trade Organization, and to create judicial and social institutions that would prevent all extremes of actions. Somebody needs to go look up noetic law and find out they got laws for them and they got laws for us. Another article here, Understanding the Reason Behind UFO Secrecy. Funny thing on the back of this book, the Earth is hollow. "50 years of secrecy over UFO ET technologies has meant that we have been denied not just the truth, but access to non-polluting energy sources which could save our planet from eco-disaster." And another magazine, November-December 2007. Wikipedia, Creating Consensus Reality, Vitamin B12 as an Alzheimer's antidote, Junk Pet Food, Recipe for Cruelty and Disease, The Wow Signal Mystery, Crop Circles of 2007, and Hitler's Death Debunked, Alchemy, Aura Pioneers, Gravity, ET, and TV. All right, The Extraordinary Story of Healer Alphonse Venn. I like all the health issues in these magazines. So here I was interviewing an engineer from Belgium who specialized in control techniques. It's a kind of computer or an instruction system. So you claim actually that you can give new instructions to this steering system and then my whole character will change. So what he's saying is here, we're all kind of programmed from when we were children. And this can actually cause diseases and other problems. So we can reprogram ourselves or have a professional do it. And it can totally change our life and instantly cure disease. Steering system that my whole character will change. Or at least have it remember its original state. So you need to get like a reset button from when you were a child and some of the vibrations and karma inside of us, which I sort of believe. Before my parents began tinkering with it, he said, guaranteed. You know, when your character changes, your whole system alarms you through symptoms we call disease. And this disease is also dis-ease. And as your character returns to its original state, the disease disappeared too. He made me smile. I did not believe it, and I thought, I'll get you. Which brings me back to another conundrum, is the HARP systems and all the other electronic devices and programming on digital TV. They've been practicing and doing things and experimenting, like I went over at Project Montauk, MK Ultra, and even piles of bones of dead young boys abducted they experimented on. And they were doing the craziest things and seeing what the results were and gathering all this knowledge. That's why I've been going over those books in my series, Freemasonry and Satanism, from number, 73 to number 83, my series. Hundreds of hours of material, backing up all this stuff that's in these magazines over my 10 plus years of research. Junk pet food and the damage done. And I've always been concerned about this issue. For a vast majority of pet dogs, cats, and ferrets, a diet of McCann's and McKibble is their everyday reality. Spurlock's doctor told him he had to stop his unnatural experiments inside 30 days because he was killing himself. By contrast, the world's pet doctors, vets, encourage pet owners to feed McCann's and McKibble, just brands, the cans of stuff or the bags of stuff, every day to their pets' lives. So, if they do all these other detrimental things to us humans and put crazy stuff in food and toxic vaccines, for the sake of $1, what will these people put in our pets' food? So I used to kind of go out of my way buying the more expensive stuff, so I thought I was doing better by the animal. So we got crop circles in 2007. So I'll just show you some pictures. It just makes the mind wonder what's really going on. And I think by the diversified investigation that I'm doing, it increases my possibility of my intuitive self, my brain, into coming up with some conclusions about what's really going on in the world. Which is why I do this diversified research topics. Because I believe it's all connected. We're all under one gigantic dome, whether you think it's a real dome or the ionosphere. We all live here, and apparently we are biological beings. And there's all kinds of paranormal activities going on. Here's a little funny cartoon. The little creature says, "Are we there yet?" All right, another one. Let's see what's October 2008. The Iran agenda, war or privatization, biofuels, and the food crisis. Sometimes I get hoarse from talking. TB link with AIDS, Earth's hidden twin, pyramid prophecies, electricity from the air. October 2008. There goes that phone again. So what did I highlight on this one? Is the war against Iran on hold? So they're kind of worried right now, February 27th, 2016. With all those troops in northern Saudi Arabia. And apparently even Turkey wanting to go into Syria. And apparently a lot of people are saying Iran is next, if not involved in this war venture they may be taking on now. And China and Russia will back up Iran and Syria. Then could the United States jump into this? Canada, Britain. World War III. think we all need to say a prayer and ask God that this not happen. Really? All right, Tehran is to allow foreign investors in what might be interpreted as an overture to the West to acquire full ownership of Iran's state enterprises in the context of a far-reaching free market style privatization program. So we can see that the states, like even with George Bush Jr., selling our seaports. And over there, Britain trying to sell off their interstate highways. These 50 corporations that control the world, which are actually have same board members running them all. So the top of this pyramid, of this new age, which apparently could be, as crazy as it sounds, some reptilian character called Pindar. And we know that Lucifer, or Satan, was a snake, which is a reptilian. So we can maybe conclude we got a cosmic battle on our hands of evil forces, which would explain why they want to destroy Christianity and other religions like all the Arabs. And they want to enslave the world and take away property rights, microchip everybody. They have a vision for the age of Aquarius. Just saying, it's what it seems to me. With the price of crude oil at 140 US dollars, it's at an all-time low right now. And if you don't know why it's at an all-time low, you listen to this article here. A barrel, the Iranian state is not in a financial straitjacket, as the case in most indebted developing countries, which are obligated to their creditors to sell their state assets to pay off the mounting external debt. So I guess if you've been watching my videos or even listening to this one, you can kind of get a general overview of what the plan is and what the war tactics are, like John Perkins said. Iran will no longer make a distinction between domestic and foreign firms that wish to purchase state-run companies. Now, as I said earlier, back then Iran was making tons of money at 140 US dollars a barrel. It's at an all-time low right now. So if you don't know what that means, it means that Iran is taking in much less money and is probably being put in a financial straitjacket. War tactic, just like all the other countries that John Perkins says that he was sent to strong-arm leaders to borrow more than they could pay, and then they go into default. All planned. So if they've done all this in the last 100 years, what do you think is next for us with the crumbling USA? Controlled apparently by Israel, as Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said, and hated by us, by those Israelis, as Benjamin Netanyahu said in Fink's Bar. Please go look it up. Or all those books that I went over in my Freemasonry and Satanism series, numbers 66 to 71. Even Bloody Zion, Professor Higger, The Jewish Utopia. All of this focused around Egyptian symbols, Horus, Isis, Osiris, witchcraft, Kabbalah, an Eastern ultimatum to Western Illuminati. So Benjamin Fulford, go look him up, benjaminfulford.com. I've been following him for quite a while. Here's a story behind him. All right, as I stated, as I started to understand how things really work, my understanding of news events became very different because I could merge the two. The conspiracy world and Wall Street Journal world into one. A lot of us are seeing that. Wall Street Journal, Skull and Bones, Freemasonic lodges, presidency, Bilderberger groups, Zionism, Jesuit. It's all part of this world conspiracy for a one world order and apparently a Luciferic world religion, as is said in the Bible and other predictions and prophecies. I got an opportunity to interview former Japanese French finance minister Hizo Tekanaka last year in the spring, and I confronted him with a lot of evidence. So what happened was the stock price of the banks plummeted in 2003. And if you look at who bought the stock, you'll find that it was bought by foreigners, State Street Bank, Chase Manhattan, Citibank. In other words, a group of financial institutions that are controlled by these charitable foundations that are in turn controlled by either the Rothschilds and Rockefellers and these other members of the Illuminati family, as described in Fritz Springmeier's book, Bloodlines of the Illuminati. Celestial Prophecies and the Great Pyramid. Carved inscriptions that adorn the original casings, stones of the Great Pyramid of Giza, revealed the future of planet Earth. But what did they say? Maybe the recently discovered prophecies of the Egyptian gods and goddesses provide the answer. Of all the mysteries on Earth, the Great Pyramids stand foremost of all. But what actually is this huge structure, and why was it built? Ancient Egyptians, one that underpinned their religions through the thousands of years, this belief was in what they called the reign of the gods, a tantalizing term that implies there was something celestial and supernatural about Egypt's ancient rulers. Here we go with the supernatural again, paranormal, supreme beings. And we got UFO reptilian characters and gray aliens, etc. Flat Earth theory, or a spear hurtling through space at 66,000 miles an hour. And yet it doesn't swish off our oxygen, air, and water. What to believe? Everything else they tell us is a lie and a deception. So why do we believe there's an Earth hurtling around the sun when we can't get a picture of an aircraft, spaceship that goes off towards Mars and take pictures, so they say. But to turn around and take a picture of Earth with the sun behind it, can you imagine how immense the sun would be in that picture? Because remember, the sun is this big compared to tiny Earth. So you'd see a gigantic sun and a little Earth, depending on how far the craft was. Or you could be closer to Earth and you'd see an Earth about the size of my fist and a backdrop like this of a gigantic sun. What an awesome picture it would be. How come we don't get one of those? And if the moon was on the side between the craft and the Earth, we'd see the moon, the Earth, and the sun. And if another planet was in the ecliptic orbit near the sun, it would probably show up in the image also. Why can't we get a picture like that? Just saying. So the reign of the gods. Just give you an idea what's in these magazines. 3 more to go. January, February 2008. Expert Patients, a New Healthcare Paradigm. Project Censor's Most Underreported Stories. Astronauts' UFO Sightings. Dietary Iodine in Breast Cancer Prevention. An Intelligent Ether. And Mysteries of the Olmecs. So what did I highlight on this one? Project Censor's Top 25 News Stories. You're not going to believe this. No habeas corpus for any person. So apparently, prior to this George Bush passed legislation, you couldn't be apprehended and thrown in prison for nothing. You were entitled to a trial. Not anymore, it seems. With the approval of the United States Congress and no outcry from the corporate media, the Military Commissions Act, the MCA, signed by President Bush on October 17, 2006, ushered in military commission law for U.S. citizens and non-citizens alike. And you get, his brother Jeb Bush wants to be president. Stuff we got going on. The extraordinary story of healer Alphonse Venn. Like I said, I like the healing stories in these books. All right, everything from the minutest to the largest thing we can imagine exists of body, spirit, and soul. But the eye-opener was, the invisible controls the invisible. The invisible controls the visible. Sorry about that. Then I knew, this is my profession. What are we doing right now, for instance? Reviewing this interview. We capture the voices on tape. You cannot see them, you cannot grasp them, but actually they are going around in space. It is invisible, but not magic. So that's what's upsetting a lot of people with this flat earth theory. Apparently, if God created it with like DNA and all that, obviously designed code. Because maybe if it was random, some humans would have 3 eyes, 4 eyes, or 2 eyes. Everything wouldn't be so ordered, according to the scientists. So another thing here, Twilight Zone. Have American astronauts witnessed UFOs by Jim Mars? I like Jim Mars. According to transcripts of the technical debriefing following the Apollo 11 mission, astronaut Neil Armstrong, Edward Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins told of an encounter with a large cylindrical UFO before reaching the moon. There's another cartoon here. Houston, send an emergency shuttle up here as soon as possible. We're running out of interesting conversation. From my research, as crazy as it seems that I might have a theory, I think they made it into Earth's orbit, but I don't think they can get past the Van Allen shield. And according to my research, which we will go over more in this book, I've been continuing to read it, and it's telling me that you don't have to go to the stars. There's other entities, if this is a flat Earth, and this is a domed area, and outside the domed area are glaciers, or ice sheets a mile high, that extend maybe to infinity, and other domed areas. Just saying, it may not be what they're telling us. I keep reading this stuff. So again, when these Buzz and Armstrong were in space, could they have seen a craft? Absolutely. They didn't have to go to the moon. I don't think you can get past the Van Allen belt. And just think about it this way. The Earth is hurtling 66,000 miles an hour that way, for example, turning 1,000 miles every 24 hours, 1,000 miles an hour, 25,000 miles in a day. And all of that is in an enclosed sheet of air, which does have resistance. So once you got outside of that air, and you're in vacuum, and you were heading this way, you wouldn't really have any way of propulsion in a vacuum. And it's 2,000 degrees from the sun shining on the craft. The logistics just don't add up. So yeah, did they go in orbit? Could they have seen another craft? I think we've already seen many of those videos on YouTube where they see these orbs shooting this way and that way, and other craft sighted by people all the time. I think there's more to reality here on Earth, on the ground, and past the mile-high sheets of ice, if it is a flat Earth, and underground in all the vast underground caves. If this is a flat Earth and somebody has dug whole cities underground, which apparently is real. Anyways, so much for my sci-fi conversation. March, April 2008. The agenda for to control global food supplies. You can tell when I start getting worn out of talking. I make more mistakes. The agenda to control global food supplies. I'm telling you, you start reading these magazines, especially over the course of 10 years, and you can see a pattern. You start looking at the press releases I've gone over, the books that I've been reading, the videos that I've been watching, and, the actual reality around me, the activities of the military and the wars, 9/11, Oklahoma City building bombing, Sandy Hook, Boston bombing, London train bombing, Paris bombing, San Bernardino bombing, and the government preparing to control the people, microchipping children already in California, Texas, Florida, cartoons that program them, giving out condoms to kids in school, passing laws. You get a $250,000 fine in New York City, I guess, if you insult a transgendered person. What is going on? Obama passing legislation to control the weapons. All this. Somebody's getting ready for something, and these magazines don't seem to dispute that. Modern medicine system, killing more than saving. Miracle malaria cure. The secret war waged on ET contactees. Ancient nuclear battles. Planning for Planet X. Free Tibet myth. Interview with Nikola Tesla. So I could read these magazines all over again and learn a whole lot more. Because when I first read them, I didn't know, connecting the dots as much as I know now. So, sowing the seeds of destruction. You can see why these were banned in the USA. William Bill Angelaha is a leading researcher, economist, and analysis of the New World Order, who has written on issues of energy, politics, and economics for over 30 years. Wow, he's smarter than me. I'm going on 11 years of my research. He is also a frequent speaker at international conferences and is a distinguished research associate for the Center of Research on Globalization, where he is a regular contributor. He is the author of A Century of War, Anglo-American Oil Politics, and the New World Order, Seeds of Destruction, The Hidden Agenda of Genetic Manipulation, Global Research 2007. He can be contacted by email at info@engledadoilpolitics.net. Stephen Lehman wrote this article. With Rockefeller family funding the Green Revolution. Everybody thinks going green is cool. Everything you see that's marketed is part of the conspiracy, or it wouldn't be marketed. Laid the groundwork for the gene revolution. So the Green Revolution laid the groundwork for the gene revolution, allowing a handful of Anglo-American agro giants to gain control of the food supply. There's so much here I highlighted, but I'm only trying to be brief here and give you an idea of my reading in the past 10 plus years. A miracle treatment for the malaria and other diseases. This is a story of the discovery and development of possibly the most amazing enhancement for the immune system yet discovered. In my book, Breakthrough, the Miracle Mineral Supplement of the 21st Century, is available free online at http://www.miraclemineral.org. I have provided complete details on how to make the supplement in your kitchen, with most of the ingredients brought off the shelf. So you can go look that up. And what's his name? Jim Humble, Humble. If you need some trouble finding it, just Google Jim V. Humble, or go to jimhumble.com or website www.miraclemineral.org. Valuable information to know? I think so. Fabricating the death of Adolf Hitler. A lot of people in my research says he retired of an old age in Argentina. The evidence I have discussed so far establishes that during the last days of the Third Reich, multiple cremations were carried out in the Reich Chancellery grounds in front of sundry witnesses who had been persuaded to believe that the bodies they saw being cremated were those of Adolf and Eva Hitler. And I'm not going to go over this one, but the secret war on contactees. Just trying to show you part of my education all these years, where I got my knowledge from. I didn't just think it up. All right, another magazine, July, August 2008. Earth Changes Alert, Megaquakes in 2008. Stem cells and colloidal silver. The Dana Doty Inquest, what the jury wasn't told. Alkaline water debunked. Eastern secret societies versus the Illuminati. GM crop yields fraud. Biofields and spin, crystal skull, and alien memories. Just a quick tour on interesting topics. A little synopsis. Seeing how that compares to everything else we think we know. What I think I know. What do you think you know? That's why I do this. Maybe we could get the broad picture and see it. An Eastern ultimatum to the Western Illuminati. Another Benjamin Fulford situation. Western Illuminati power brokers, like the Rothschilds and Rockefellers, have exerted so much control over some Eastern economies that the Oriental secret societies have challenged them to step down without a fight. It's a pretty nasty thing going on, but the Orientals have become aware of what the Westerns, that would be the Freemasons, Illuminati, Jesuits, Zionists, their control over the world, and the Easterners, Orientals, Asians, are not happy about it. And remember, these are the guys who are into kung fu and stuff. So get this. The son of a Canadian diplomat, Benjamin Fulford, rebelled against his upbringing at the age of 17 and made his way by boat into the heart of the Amazon to live with a tribe of former cannibals. Continuing to seek answers and better understand Western society, he spent time in a self-sufficient community in Argentina before heading to Japan to attend university. Apparently he came from a wealthy family. Principled, brave, and still a die-hard idealist, after all these years, he resigned as Asia Pacific Bureau Chief of Forbes magazine after investigating a scandal which the editor refused to report. As he researched world affairs further, in his own time, he uncovered for himself a complex web, which is global financial control at the hands of the Rockefellers and Rothschilds, and also the existence of a racially targeted bioweapons such as SARS. So they're developing bioweapons that can target specific races. We know that with AIDS, they were trying to target either gay people or black people. Made in a laboratory. It was these plans for global depopulation, here you get this, that upset some important and powerful factions in Japan. So in Japan, the leaders were really worried, concerned about the New World Order folks' global depopulation plans. You think? Taiwan and China. After being approached by real-life, present-day ninja, matters came to a head in 2007 when Benjamin became the first Westerner for 500 years to be admitted into the ranks of the Eastern secret societies, a vast group with 6 million members. And these ninja folks have threatened to kill off a lot of American leaders, world leaders, Illuminati types, And we know if you watch the YouTube videos, there was a lot of banksters that were mysteriously dying. So they've been threatening the Illuminati, according to Benjamin Fulford. All right, one last magazine, and we'll finish this little cruise through history of my Nexus magazines from 2005 to 2008. And I've got them all the way up to 2015, 14, and I need to order 2015. So we'll do some more of these Nexus magazine synopsises in the future. Hopefully the near future. But I got so many videos to make. So many ideas. And the clock is ticking. The troops are forming in North Saudi Arabia. Russia is deporting some troops down into Belarus on the southwestern border of Russia, while the Europeans and Israel and Saudi Arabia are putting troops on the east northern border. So I call it the offenders, the attackers against the defenders, and the countries in the middle like Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Iran. I should just color them in black, because apparently everybody living there will be dead. Just my little way to show you what it might look like. And I think that the offenders and the defenders, the offenders and the defenders, the attackers and the defenders, I think it's all a controlled situation. And all the silly troops from the north and the west and the east and the south, we the people will be dead, killed, while these puppet masters play this game, as we're seeing in these magazines. November, December 2008. Well, this is appropriate for the last one. RFID chip surveillance, your every move tracked. The coming ice age. Codex versus health freedom. Miracle magnetism. Cryptic crop circles. Ringing cedars books. Vladimir Mir's interview. All right, what did I highlight here? Implanted RFID chips in a surveillance society. I don't know if you've got your new credit card or debit card recently, but you can clearly see the chip in it. All right, new threats to privacy and civil liberties. If incorporated personal details into an RFID radio frequency identification chip implanted into a passport or driver's license may sound like a smart alternative to endless lines at the airport and intrusive questioning by securocrats, think again. Since the late 1990s, corporate grifters have been touting the benefits of the devilish transmitters as a convenient and cheap way to tag individual commodities, one that would revolutionize inventory management and theft prevention. RFID tags are small computer chips connected to a miniature antenna that can be fixed or implanted with physical objects, including human beings. Governments and their agencies in the US and China are touting the benefits of radio frequency identification chips for their ability to track, monitor, profile citizens, and keep them under control. And they can do much more than that. As you know, we're bioelectric beings. And here's another article, The Serpent at the End of Procession. So, when the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, wearing out my talking apparatus, my throat. So when the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change drafted the Kyoto Protocols and presented it in 1997 to world governments as a way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in an effort to curb global warming, an international consensus was made to turn away from their earlier concerns over evidence of a looming ice age. So this magazine was 2008 November, December. And they decided to disregard the threat of global warming because now they were convinced of a looming ice age. You can go look this up. So much craziness. And they got another threat here in this magazine. They're worried about the Earth reversing its polarity. Meanwhile, they're building all those HARP transmitters. They could probably change the polarity. And they're building them strategically. North, south, like on a nice little grid pattern. So if they did turn them on, could they change the polarity? Because remember, the Earth's magnetic field is very weak. And they got those acres, 40 by 40 acres, of all those arrays of microwave electromagnetic transmitters called HARP. Look it up. HAARP. And also add that to the sky sprang, which is heavy metals. So what do you get when you have heavy metals floating in the sky and you turn on an electromagnetic transmitter? Could you flip the Earth's pole, magnetic pole? I do have a degree in electronic technology. I worked at a major aerospace company for 10 years. So theoretically, the answer is yes. Alright, so one last thing to end this video is crop circles of 2008. Again, take some time and ponder. Go on the computer, find crop circles, look at them. Let your intuitive brain, your spiritual self, open up and come up with an idea what this is all about. Then, if you come up with a brilliant idea, there is a comment section on the bottom of this video. I'd like to know what you think. And there is a PayPal donate some money to my publishing cause. I would like that. So far, nobody's given me a cent. I keep doing it anyways. Here's an interesting one. What to believe? What to believe? Looks like the Pentagon there. I suspect all this is connected. Like I said, the back of these books has interesting advertisements. Well, I hope you found this video to be worthwhile. Give me a thumbs up on these videos. That's how I know that you're enjoying them. And it motivates me to keep doing them. Rick Marrico reporting.